Oh yes, we watched Eclipse.
And oh my god, it's ramping up.
This film, out of the three of them so far, bored me the most.
Yeah.
After New Moon, I felt some confidence that the appallingness of the first one was kind of they'd learned from the mistakes of that movie and had sort of improved upon. It still wasn't great, New Moon, but it, relatively speaking, it was much better
compared to the first one.
This one, I would argue, was worse than the first.
Yeah.
I'd zoned out so much. I didn't even really pay much attention to any of those things anymore. I mean, at points I found myself just staring at the ceiling.
It starts really well, I think, personally. Like, the first scene, I'm like, boom, I'm in. This is probably one of the better action scenes I have seen from Twilight so far. It's slightly creepy and scary. He gets beaten up, he gets thrown against the thing. I'm like, oh, this is cool, where's this going and whatever. And then when you figure out where it's going and where it all leads to and how much all of this other crap around it just drags the film down so much, you just go, this is bad.
Everything else is just an excuse to have a half-assed love story. You know how in a lot of films you have action or there is some story that is central and then there'll be some side romance thing, storyline. It's like they've been reversed in importance but not in quantity or quality.
It's one Mills and Boon book eked out to be 4 books, which has then been eked out to be 5 movies.
That's it. That is precisely it.
They've sort of thought, well, we can't just have 4 books of these two huffing at each other and being doe-eyed and this sort of weird love triangle. What should we do instead? Oh, well, let's put in a real bit part character in the first book who then appears in bit part scenes.
It's just plot. What's her name?
Victoria.
Victoria. I just kept calling her plot device vampire woman because that's all she is. And I don't get how you can have a film where it's antagonist for 3 films, sorry.
Yeah, kind of 3,
3 films is just parachuted in at the end. Just like it's like playing a really simple video game and it's just some pointless boss appears that you've never seen before.
Yes.
She's not only parachuted in at the end, she also in I think all 3 movies, somewhere in the middle, runs across the shot.
This is the first film where I genuinely disliked Bella. Everything about this film is pushing the whole, should you go and be a vampire? Should you be a vampire? She has that conversation with her mum where she's like, oh, you know, when you get married and have kids of your own. And you expect the next scene to be her going, oh, I didn't really think about it. Instead, she's just like, she's okay with it. Like, all of these things that you think she should be thinking about, she doesn't bring them up. Someone else does, and then she goes, "Yeah, I'm fine."
Yeah, she seems to think about them in the interim period between the previous scene and the next scene. She's made her peace with whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I can't remember well enough, but there's got to be something in the books about that. The bits that they've chosen.
I wouldn't bet on it.
No, actually, yeah. Now I've said it. Now I've said it out loud.
This film is very much the love triangle film, isn't it? This is trying to push Jacob as a potential mate for her. And I suppose it does through sheer stupidity and persistence.
Through Jacob, actually physically breaking some boundary or crossing some boundaries and physically forcing himself upon her.
Yeah.
And then breaks her fist.
Yeah, Jacob in this movie is positively creepy, I think.
He's sexually aggressive, definitely.
Yeah, he takes the whole wolf aggression thing to another level. At one point, he implies, I'm pretty sure, that he can smell her minge. That's what I got from what he said.
He
says I can smell your fear, but I'm pretty sure he means something else.
No, he says sexually I can smell. I know what's going on with you physically. That was it. And it was what does that mean? Like, explain that. If I was her, I would go explain that to me. Jacob. What does that mean? You can feel me physically? Because I need to know what that is. Because that's creepy.
But what actually happens is she just looks at him and kind of goes...
Yeah.
And does
We
that
don't
weird
really
sort of-
answers.
It's her only facial expression, really.
Well, it's that. It's the slight bite of the lip, and then it's the...
Oh, yeah. To be fair, she's in a very weird situation. Like, you
She's
gotta
in a
give her
weird
that.
situation that she's put herself in. You could
Because
get
she's
yourself
in
out of
love.
this. Oh, is she?
The last film, New Moon, you could see that Jacob was growing as a friend and maybe a kind of a lover. Like he was trying to push it, but she was like, no, it's not happening. And you could see it naturally growing. This film goes, no, we don't need that now. We're just going to, even though she has told you outright, no, we need a love triangle. So you're going to persist with this.
Yeah.
You're going to persist so much.
Because he's not the best actor in the world, I just don't think he can do it. So he just ends up being sexually aggressive, creepy man.
I think it's a combination of his acting and the writing. I think
Yeah,
that
I don't think that's down to him.
Typically, the dialogue is fecking awful. Like, just atrocious. Like, him telling her that he loved her was just the most fucking mundane thing. It's just like, yeah,
I don't even remember that. When did he do that?
No, nor do I.
He does.
Does he?
Precisely. Like a major character confesses his love for another major character, and you both forgot about it because it's so dull.
I remember the kiss, and when she asks for it, the kiss.
Which
and
was
that
weird.
scene, I think that scene is meant to be dramatic and emotional and whatever, but it just turns out like childish, really childish, and the fact that her boyfriend is just
over
over
there.
the hill. Like, who can read minds and actually admits to being able to read his mind. And I think you made a comment on your voice notes about him being able to read Jacob's boner because he can read his mind. And it's like, it's such a weird... She makes terrible choices in this, terrible
Like that
decisions,
one.
and she does terrible things in this. She is not a nice character in this one. And at that point, I've kind of gone... I was not rooting for you, but I could get on with the journey of Bella. At this point, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if you get ripped apart by zombies. They're not in it. Oh, there might be. But I don't care if you get ripped apart by vampires. I don't care anymore for you. I just, you're so... And this whole thing as well is about... The last one was about age. This one is all about marriage, right? Should she decide to get married? And this whole argument is so void, and who gives a shit? Because she's about to become a vampire and spend the rest of her life sucking blood from animals or humans, maybe. Like, how is marriage even a question? It's so bizarre that they put this stress on marriage when no one gives a shit. No one cares.
It's so irrelevant to being a vampire.
Yeah.
Why does it matter to Edward so much? Like,
I agree with that also.
why?
Yeah.
Like, you know this other commitment that she's essentially making and what it entails, yet for some reason you want to go stand at the altar with her.
It's because he wants to hang out the back of her, and his morals won't allow it. That's essentially what it is. He says so much. He's like, I definitely want to have sex, but I can't because we're not married and I'm old-fashioned. So basically, all of this is just his. It's a device for him to deploy in order for him to get laid. I'm sure that's not what the original intention was, but that's how it comes across. He's like, no, we can't do it until we're married, so we must be married. His controlling nature, where he's like, you're not going to do this, you're not allowed to do that.
It's bad in this one.
Yeah, the fact that he lies to her about all sorts of things, the fact that she gets lied to and then just kind of goes, oh, it's fine, it doesn't matter. The fact that Jacob is so sexually aggressive throughout all of it, the fact that we get one of the most awkward bonding moments between Jacob and Edward, where Jacob is lying in a tent keeping her warm while she's apparently asleep, but I'm sure there's a little hint of a smile at the end of it.
She smiles
where they say
she's evil.
Yeah.
That's the thing. She's just manipulating these two guys.
These two horny guys
Why
who
she
is so
cut-
horny for her.
On the point of Edward wanting to get his end away, right, we know that Jacob can because he's warm-blooded and is alive. If
Yeah.
you've got no blood coursing through your veins, how'd you get a boner? It's just a logistical... It's a question of logistics that I haven't been able to get my head around. How is it
Yeah.
even possible? So what?
That's a
So
very
they're
good
going to go
point.
through all of this stuff, get married, and then discover, oh no, sorry, nothing works down there because what's he going to do? Just will it into being, right? Using the power of my mind, or just waving my waist really, really quickly in a kind of a windmill motion. Enough of my old dead blood will move into it that you'll get probably, a bit of a semi-on that you could probably use for 30 seconds.
Maybe he has to like get it out in the sunshine so it turns into a diamond or something.
Goes rock hard. Oh, they are hard as stone, aren't they?
Yeah.
They are hard as stone, which I guess, does that mean that they walk around with a permanent boner?
No,
Yeah,
I
maybe.
imagine
It's
you
always-
can,
but
you
it's
can
always
put it
just
in
Maybe
the
that's
position
why.
of.
Maybe that's
permanent
really the
boner.
reason why they don't go out in the sunlight. Is because they've just got a raging boner on.
And the end of it will shine,
Yeah.
glow like a,
Like a bloody
like an
little
Olympic
miniature
torch.
lighthouse or something.
In that tent, they do have a very I'd say mature conversation about Bella and their relationships with her, which feels like it's very good for the audience to hear. Doesn't make sense in the context of who those people are, considering they absolutely detest each other. He knows he's trying to move in on his girlfriend, who, by the way, is going to turn into a vampire for him. And he just has this sensible conversation about it that feels like it should come from like his dad or someone else. It's so contrived. There are so many things in this that just feel so contrived. Like the first one, I know you two didn't like the first one, and I know it is slow, but it was coherent and kind of logical
But
enough.
that's because it was so simple that it was impossible not to be coherent.
100% agree with you. I think you're right. And I think as soon as the writer tried to get more complicated with it, the more her inability to write shows. So many girls would be watching this, and if they are into it, would be so okay with toxic relationships coming out of this. He is so controlling, Edward, in this. So controlling. And then Jacob's not much better.
Then he turns up at the party.
Yeah.
Jacob and his mates. A party at the vampire's house. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's bizarre.
how did we get from where we were to where we are?
Had they already agreed to like ally against the fucking newborn vampires, who we'll get into at another point?
The whole even having a party at their house, they couldn't even deal with one human coming for dinner. All of a sudden, they're throwing parties.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
how many
none of those other
parties have we
children
been to,
taste
Chris,
as
when
nice.
someone's bleeding at the end of it?
No.
Like, that could set anyone off. Like, it's bizarre. It's so like, oh yeah, we can have a party now. Can you? It's been 100 years since you've invited anyone in. Like, it's bizarre. And why is Jasper? Why is Jasper the leader of the armies all of a sudden? Why is he so sensible?
I don't think it's the same person anymore. Like, it literally is the same actor and character, but it's like somebody else has been teleported into his brain. He didn't do anything for like two films really. Like,
he stared and looked creepy.
Yeah, I mean, first film he didn't even blink. Second one he gets slightly more animated, and then we've just
Well,
leapt into
that's because he wants to eat Bella at the thingy. And then in this one, he is controlled, he is organised, he is whatever. And I thought, oh, maybe he was a newborn in the previous episode. But then you learn, no, he was turned back in the Civil War days.
Why does it take until three books in to get any kind of backstory on anyone?
That's true. And Rosalie, yet again.
But him and Rosalie have now got more backstory than Edward or Bella or Jacob.
Or Jacob, yeah.
They have been given more context. It's taken a long time to get to it. But again, I think we talked about it when we talked about the first movie. There is this kind of implied view that you going into this movie, you already know all about everything.
Does that stuff get explained in the books, like Edward's backstory?
I can't remember.
Because
If
if
it
that,
is, it's-
like, Jesus, if he doesn't, like, he's like one of two major characters.
But Rosalie, yet again, is the only character really that I kind of want to hear more from her. Like when she tells her story about where she's been and what happened to her and all this, I'm like, that's a film. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see this. I've fallen in love with a vampire and I'm contemplating marriage. I want to see. I want to see her going through that horrific time and then going, you know what? I'm so powerful now. I can rip their heads off. And the power that's a lovely revenge story. That's such an awesome revenge story that you kind of want to see, especially the era and the time that was set. I was like, this will be cool. And then you go straight back to this boring love triangle.
Why does she even get the backstory? Like, where's Alice's backstory? Alice is a more consequential character to what's going on in the story, in so much as she's the plot device. But she's also kind of Bella's
best friend,
de facto best mate and everything.
You know, all those good scenes they spend together where they're best mates. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but the only ones that have been given any kind of backstory are Jasper, because it felt like it was necessary to give him something to explain why he was then relevant to the training montage that they put over some appalling 80s love ballad, it felt like. But then also, why give Rosalie any story at all when the only reason you're giving her a story is to try and make Bella see sense in what she's doing? But then Bella is so unsympathetic to the whole thing. You just don't need it. All you could have done was just given Rosalie a line where she says, I think what you're doing is a bad idea.
In any scene, I think she is the one that talks the most sense about everything, Rosalie.
Yeah. The newborn and the newborn army. Why the fuck would newborn vampires be the strongest they're ever going to be?
It's because they've still got human blood coursing through their...
Because that's like, no... The vampire blood is supposed to be the bit that gives you the power, not the fucking human blood, the inferior humans.
I think the idea is, for example, when you get a virus, the virus is at its worst early on, and then it tails off and it's still affecting you, but your body gets kind of accustomed to it, and then you start fighting it. You know, like how you're spottier as a teenager than you are when you're older. But you still get spots when you're older. But you get this rush of hormones and everything kind of goes into overdrive and breaks out. You know, you get terrible acne, you start smelling worse than you've ever smelled, you sprout up taller. It's that kind of idea of, this is their adolescence, they're out of control.
In terms of imagery, like who thinks baby, newborn, powerful? Where in that sort of word association game, that's not how that works.
It's the way that they phrased it and what they've called them that just makes you kind of go, no, that doesn't make sense. The concept of it, actually, I think it's quite a good. I quite like it, because if you were to ignore the fact that there's so much contrived shit going on in this, but if you were to say that someone has created an army of newborn vampires in order to create a feral newborn army in an attempt to destroy an established clan of vampires, that actually is quite a good, that leads to kind of could be quite an interesting thing. But it's the fact that it's kind of this sort of side story to this terrible love story rather than the main story of a single film where it's the focus. It just gets lost in kind of these sort of, let's just do a bit of exposition to explain what the problem is here, just so that we can set up this action set piece at the end, because otherwise nothing has happened in our movie at all.
Victoria, who is the main drive of any action in this film whatsoever, who has been around for 3 films now. We know that she obviously had a relationship with James, who died in the first one.
Yeah.
But that's about it that we know. We actually don't learn anything about her past in 3 movies other than she was dating this guy called James. And the issue being that we just don't... I don't care.
No.
One, she should be dead by now. I don't understand how she's allowed to run through that forest several times without anyone killing her. That's
She
bizarre.
should either be dead by now or she should have killed everyone.
And for some reason in this film, they decided to replace her with a more established actress, Dallas Bryce Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
A bit bizarre choice, considering she doesn't really... She does more than she has done in previous films, but I wouldn't say, Coy, you got to get a big name to come and pull this off.
I'd argue that at the time that this came out, Bryce Dallas Howard wasn't that big a name.
Yeah.
She wasn't that big, but I imagine she had a bigger name than previous Victoria.
Oh yeah, something Lefebvre, I think her name was.
And I also think, unless that other woman didn't want to come back, it's so disrespectful of the filmmakers.
Maybe she just couldn't, like, the actress just couldn't do it. And it was, she's such an inconsequential character, the fucking antagonist, that they just thought, oh, swap it. I didn't even notice. I had no idea until you said it that they changed actresses.
I noticed only because I know who she is. After her boyfriend dies in the first one, she runs through the forest for what we can guess is a couple of weeks, maybe, because the whole film of the second one is 2 weeks. Then she decides she's going to get an army. By these armies of New Bloods that she'll control through someone else because she knows that one of them can read her mind. That's amazing. I don't know how she knows that.
No, it's not the read her mind. It's that she knows that Alice can see the future based on the choices that she makes. So therefore, she gets someone else to make the choices.
Does she know that?
Which, yes, she does know that. Apparently, not sure how, but also doesn't really make sense because why didn't Alice see her make the choice to infect that person in the first place, in order that she could
Alice sees what she needs to see for the plot, Dave.
Yeah.
Please don't question that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay? But that's kind of exactly the point I'm making.
I missed all of these big questions because I just reached this point of, I don't care. I couldn't give a shit.
This was tough. This genuinely was the toughest one I sat through. I honestly felt like you on this one, Chris. I was like, oh my God, hurry up. I don't care. And in fact... It has made me... We've got two more left. We've got Breaking Dawn 1 and 2, right?
Do you know what? I'm not even really sure. I don't know if I can hate myself enough to willingly sit down in front of the screen and watch it.
It was boring. It really was in places. It was conversations I didn't care about. I think that's what did it for this one. It wasn't the lack of action. In the first one, I was all right with lack of action a little bit. This one, it was the nonsensical conversations they were having. It was talking about marriage when it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to anyone. Who cares? And like the whole I want to get married before I have sex with you. And then he proposes to her after he gets her all horned up. And goes, no, I can only do it if I'm married to you. Do you want to marry me? And also, he goes on beforehand about, I'm old-fashioned, I need to ask your dad first. And then he does that.
And then asks her to, then says, let's get married.
It's pick and choose, whatever the fuck you want to make it work. That's what really annoyed me, is inconsistencies and terrible script with conversations I don't care about anymore. And her, I've lost any I hope she gets ripped apart. I don't care about her anymore. And so this also has a lot to do with the wolves and the vampires working together to overcome the newborns. And there's moments in it where a wolf, because they turn up as wolves, they can't speak. So there's a lot of head movements.
Ridiculous. Why just change back?
I know, just change back and have a chat.
They did explain it. They didn't want to change back because they didn't trust the vampires.
Yeah, I heard that, but there are times when he's next to Bella, and he's just putting her head down. And I did think that Bella at one point was going to really sort of stroke him and all that, and I was like, that's still a man underneath that.
Well, she did. She scratches his head between his ears, and you're just like.
Yeah, but then stops, and I was like, if this goes on anymore, it's weird. But she does it she hugs him when he's topless and picks her up.
Oh, the carrying her around thing. Why was that necessary?
Please don't. That's so much. Oh, this is more. It's more contrivances. It's like, how do we get these two close to each other? Well, he's hot. Let's make it snow on that mountain. Why are you there? Why didn't they think to shove her in a fucking cage and just have her in a cage so when they come they can't get to her and everyone can fight around her. Put her in a basement somewhere and just surround her. It's so weird that they didn't think about the only reason they're all coming to fight is to get Bella, and they leave it to the last minute to go, what should we do with Bella? And they just they stick her up a mountain where Victoria just walks up and goes, I'm here.
The reason Jacob carries her is because he smells repulsive to vampires, and he therefore masks her scent because she smells like, as we've established, butterscotch angel delight. So he takes her up the hill, but then Edward also follows them up the hill. So doesn't go with them so that his scent would also be masked. Follows them up the hill to go camping in the very secure tent. The idea being that Edward and Bella will stay where they are and no one will know where they are. But what subsequently happens is they say, oh, Victoria smelled Edward's scent and she's clever, so she knew that Edward wouldn't be without Bella. So that whole thing that they say that we said makes sense.
She is a smart one. If it's one thing I've said about Victoria, it's she's a smart one.
If there's one thing we've learnt about her through these 3 movies in which she's had approximately 5 minutes of screen time altogether, it's that she is an incredibly smart tactician.
Why didn't this film... I know why I don't know why I'm asking this question, but why didn't this film make us feel sorry for Victoria? That's what it should have done.
So this film reviewed critically slightly better than the last one. And I wonder if that's because they waited a year between watching those films. Where I've waited days.
Yeah.
Right?
And
I honestly wonder if that makes a difference.
If you enjoyed the ramblings of 3 old men watching a teenage love story, you should definitely subscribe and you should like it. And I mean, if you made it this far, it's kind of insulting if you don't like and subscribe at this point, I think.
Or you fell asleep with this on.
Which actually, that's fine. Let it run into the next video we do.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it works on the stats. Still, as far as YouTube's concerned, you've watched it all the way through. So.
That's watch time, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, goodbye.